Do you want to fill your raised garden beds, but you don't know where to start? You came to the right place, because in this video I will show you 4 different ways how you can fill your raised beds and sprinkle some tips in the process. I'll show you how I reuse some soil from last year, give you some tips on how to prepare Mel's soil mix, which is the original soil mix for the square foot gardening method. We'll discuss how much soil and compost you need to fill one simple 4x4 raised bed, and in the end I will show you what Hugelkultur is and how it can lower the cost of filling your beds. And to help you find quicker what you'll need, I'll put some timestamps in the comments, so you can skip to the section you like to hear more about. So without further ado, let's start filling our raised garden beds. This season I decided to rebuild my raised bed garden, and with all the new garden beds, I needed a lot of new, good quality soil to fill them. And then it hit me. This will cost me a fortune. If you think about it, one bag of organic compost in my area costs around $6 per cubic feet. And to fill all the raised beds, I would need 164 cubic feet of organic compost. In other words, around $1,000. $1,000! Madness! So I start thinking. One of the simplest way to fill my raised beds was to reuse the soil that I already had in my garden. If you recall from last year, the raised beds in my garden are filled just with some topsoil and sprinkled with a small layer of compost. And to make the soil better, I passed it through a sifter. This removed any larger stones and made the soil fluffier. This method is absolutely free, but it requires a lot of work, digging the topsoil and then passing it through a sifter. But thinking about how saving $1,000 helped me in the process. After I sifted the last shower, I saw that I had 4 remaining raised beds in the center and that they also needed to be filled. And I remembered. Since I started with square foot gardening, I always wanted to try the famous Mel's mix. It's simple to prepare and it promises a good draining soil that retains moisture well and it has a lot of nutrients. The only drawback, I needed to buy almost all the ingredients. But what exactly is Mel's mix composed with? Mel's mix is a simple mix composed with 1/3 of perlite, 1/3 of compost, and 1/3 of peat moss. But because I heard that peat moss gathering is ruining some environments, I decided to go with coconut coir, a good alternative. Coconut coir is prepared similar to peat moss. It's packed in compact cubes that you crush and soak in water for half an hour or so. In that time, the fibers of the coconut absorb a lot of water and expand. In this process, you can also see why coconut fibers are good for your soil mix. They retain a good amount of water, releasing it to your plants when they need it. Perlite, on the other hand, is some kind of volcanic rock. When making it, they heat it, and in the process the small rocks pop like popcorn, making them light and full of air pockets. So the perlite helps to boost the oxygen level near the roots of your plants. And compost? I think I don't need to explain what compost is and how good it is for your soil. The mix is light and easy to mix. And one tip when mixing is not to dump one component in one spot, especially perlite. When dropping it into your raised bed, try to spray it around and then mix it with a rake. But every luxury has its price. So as I mentioned, unfortunately you need to buy the ingredients. And for this raised bed, which is roughly 16 cubic feet, to give you a rough estimate, it cost me $75 to fill it. And I used some of my homemade compost. Otherwise, it would cost me around $100. Do you like this kind of content? Smash that like button to let me know. And consider subscribing if you're interested to see how the different soil mixtures will do over the period of the entire season. Fortunately, I needed to fill just one raised bed with this costly mix, and the other 3 beds I filled completely for free. But how? I had stored 3 barrels of topsoil that I got when I was cleaning a portion of my garden that will become my new location for the tomato plants. And to mend the topsoil, I used compost, 8 wheelbarrows to be exact. From the 3-bin composting system that I had installed last year, I managed to collect a full barrel of compost over the period of 1 season. I stored it knowing that I would need it this year when I would expand my garden. But before putting all the soil into my raised bed, I needed to add some lining inside, so that the soil wouldn't escape from them. This was done by placing some row cover folded into 2 layers on the inside of my raised bed. Then I nailed it in place to secure it. If you're interested in the design of the raised bed, they are made only with hand tools, with just 2 pellets. You can watch the pinned video on the top right corner. When filling your beds that are protected with a liner, try to fill the borders first, to secure the liner up against the raised bed. Otherwise, the soil will make too much pressure on the liner and could break it. The filling process is easy. First, fill the topsoil that is usually there just as a filler, because most of the roots won't reach it, so you don't need to amend it. And then fill the rest of the raised bed with your homegrown compost, which is full of nutrients and will provide a good fertile environment for your plants. A simple and effective way to fill your raised beds. The only problem is that you need to prepare the compost in advance, or you'll still need to buy it, but I think you can secure some topsoil for free, so you'll be cutting your cost at least in half. Another method I use to fill my raised beds is one that I'm most curious how it will turn out. I'm talking about the smash that like button method, or also known the Hugelkultur method. I will briefly explain what this method is, but if you're interested in a more in-depth video, just comment Germany to let me know that you want to see it. At the bottom, I placed some logs that were decomposing for almost a year at the border of the property. I needed to cut them to the proper size and place them so that they would fill the bottom part of my raised bed. So Hugelkultur is a German method that was first presented in 1962 in a gardening book. This method involves piling up some logs, sticks and other organic material into a pile or raised bed and then covering it with some compost. After placing the big logs, I filled the gaps with the topsoil that was left from filling the other raised beds. Next, it was time to place some smaller branches and also fill them with some topsoil and freshly made compost. Hugelkultur per se is composting in place. The logic here is that your plants will grow in the first layer of compost, and over a period of years, the bottom organic layer will slowly decompose, releasing more nutrients in the process. To top off my raised bed, I placed a thick layer of fertile compost that will in the end provide the growing space for my plants. Another benefit of this method is that the slowly decomposing wood will act like a sponge, absorbing all the excess water and slowly releasing it to your plants, like the coconut core in the maize mix. The logs and sticks also provide another beneficial factor in my build. They hold the soil in the raised bed, preventing that the soil flows to the holes of my raised bed, and they act like a bulking agent, allowing me to put less soil in my raised beds. A win-win situation. The only drawback is that I cannot plant root vegetables in this raised bed, like carrots, but I have another dedicated space for them in my garden. So for those of you who stuck to the end, I have a bonus way how you can fill your raised garden beds. It's an old Irish method that is completely free and is the reason I had all the soil necessary to fill my raised bed last year. You can click on the video that pop on the screen to learn more about this fantastic lazy method to fill your raised beds. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see how the different methods perform over the growing season. Happy gardening!